Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Sri Lanka will witness snap elections on 14th of November this year after President Anura Kumara Dissanayake dissolved the parliament late on Tuesday night. A gazette notification was issued on the dissolution and calling elections. Nominations will be received from 4th to 11th October. Dissanayake was elected as President of Sri Lanka in a close three-cornered fight. His alliance, National People's Power, has only 3 members in the current legislature, 2 of whom are part of the cabinet, including Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. All right, Dr. Ahmed Muin Farooqi joins us from Colombo. Ahmed, good morning. Sri Lanka will witness snap elections on November 14th this year. And we saw President Dissanayake dissolve the parliament late on Tuesday. Help us understand the political procedure. How do the process move on from here?
Preeti, you see, Sri Lanka adopts a very complex kind of political system. There's a presidential election which we have just seen over the last week, in which National People's Power candidate Anura Kumara Dissanayake won by a very, only by assuming about 42%, and thereby later on, for the first time in the history of Sri Lanka, a second round of counting had ensued. Thereafter, he was declared as the president. Now, he has announced that the parliament would be dissolved because there is a parliament which is the 225-member house here in Sri Lanka, and this is the one which takes care of the legislative activity of the government of Sri Lanka. As of now, as we are talking about the parliament, in the outgoing parliament, the National People's Power only had 3 members. Now, with the election coming in another 7 weeks, there is a possibility that NPP will increase its number, and it is also expected that people will come out and vote in its favor in huge numbers. What exactly happens here is there are 22 electoral districts in which there are going to be multi-member constituencies, and 196 members will be elected from these 22 electoral districts. And there will also be a national list from which 29 members will be nominated on the basis of proportionate, vote share of each of the parties, totally taking the strength of the House to 225. In the outgoing House, it was SLPP who had fought the election under Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the then president, in 2020. And they had around 108 members in the House, while there were other members from SJP as well as from the other political parties in the island. Now, as the political landscape has changed, with SLSP not having a presence in the political arena, UNP also having wiped out its presence in 2020's general election, and SLPP, which has seen a very poor performance in the recent presidential elections, it is very interesting to see how will all of the remaining parties perform, how will NPP perform, how will the opposition party SJP, Samagli Jana Balvegya, how will they perform, and if there's going to be any further coalition coming up, because you see from October 4th to 11th there's going to be acceptance of nomination papers, and this will be interesting. Now all sorts of discussions will happen between rival parties as to how the seats would be decided upon and how they will go ahead with the coalition.
All right, so that was about the political setup in Sri Lanka. But then, Ahmed, during the economic and political turmoil in 2022, we saw how the then Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, took the presidentship of the country, given the circumstances at that time. Having said that, help us understand the role and the powers of the Prime Minister in the island nation, and also was it on the expected lines that Dissanayake dissolved the parliament, because it has been dissolved 11 months ahead of the schedule?
Yes, you see, as I already mentioned, NPP only has 3 members in the entire parliament, and to run a government you require cabinet ministers. They do not have sufficient numbers in the parliament, and that was the primary reason why the NPP would have thought that this would be the opportune moment to go ahead with the dissolution. Yes, previously in 2022, Ranil Wickremesinghe, although he was a single member from his party, that too not even elected, in fact, he had only come out to national list, that is on the basis of proportionate of the vote representation of his party. He was elevated to the position of president, while just before that he was the prime minister. Prime minister, you see, he shares quite a lot of responsibilities from among the cabinet ministers. The prime minister will assist the president in day-to-day matters, will assist the president in advising the various decisions that have to be taken, will also be the one person who will guide the cabinet. So a lot of responsibility rests on Prime Minister, although the president here is the executive head. He's the head of state as well as head of the government as well as the head of armed forces. So president has immense power, but Prime Minister is also very important in guiding the policies of the government and helping the president in taking them forward. Please.
All right. Also, Ahmed, very quickly, how do you gauge the nerve of the people? You told us about the political setup in the country. Very quickly, apprise us about who could be the prominent candidates, and how do you judge or gauge the pulse of the people?
Preeti, to begin with, yesterday, Dr. Harinya Amarasuriya from NPP has been made the Prime Minister. And it's for the first time that an academic has been made the Prime Minister who has a PhD as well. She is an India alumnus. Now, going forward, NPP has said that a candidate who would have the highest vote share will be made the Prime Minister in the coming Parliament. Now, currently speaking, yes, there are going to be lots of discussions among the various parties with regard to forming an alliance. But currently speaking, people who had been protesting in 2022 had been asking for a change. There was a strong desire for change felt. And that was what was seen in the presidential election. Probably similar kind of a thought will continue even in the parliamentary election. That said, most of the poll surveys as of now, which are talking about a hung kind of a parliament, they are indicating a close fight between SJB, the opposition party right now, and the NPP, the party from which President Anurag Kumar Dissanayake belongs to. But still, a lot of floating vote or the fence sitters will probably be thinking whom to vote, and they would not yet be decided. And it needs to be seen how the coming 7 weeks will pan out, and thereafter, when the elections happen, probably that would be the time where people would make up their minds and go ahead and vote, choose which will be the most ideal party to whom they should vote, and who would be the most ideal to lead the country.
All right, Ahmed, we leave it here. Thank you so much for joining us with those details.